Applying special effects to text is a little different than working with boxes, which are the traditional things that we do online. We usually create elements that are built around box elements. And so let's take a look at text effects and some of the things that you can do with them. So I've created a series of boxes that have different names that I'm going to apply. So you could see every one of these has the same class and different IDs. And we've created a style for the box right here, which has a gradient, same gradient for all of them, and define some of the font elements for every one of these. So all these boxes will share the same style, and then we're going to go through and specify individual things for each one of these elements. So let's work with the drop shadow. Drop shadow is pretty easy to do. We have the text shadow element, and the text shadow element takes 3 parameters plus a color. So you can see that we're creating a XY offset for where the shadow is going to be. So we can move the shadow down with this one and to the right or left. So we can specify a negative value to move it to the other side, or a positive value to the right. And this will be the strength of the shadow, how soft the shadow is. So the higher this number, the softer the shadow. If we don't include that number, the shadow is actually a hard shadow. And the color can be whatever we want. It doesn't have to be black. In the same way, when you want to create an element that glows, you're essentially going to be applying that text a shadow that stays put. So let's try that. And in this case, we don't want the shadow to go anywhere. So we're going to type in 0 pixels for the X and Y position, and just type in a very, very large glow value for the third element. And then just put in any color you want. So in this case, I want to use kind of like a yellow, and you can see that it acts as a glow. So it's essentially a shadow that doesn't offset and has a very soft amount applied to it. And then a color that makes it look like it glows. So pretty simple. Let's try a different one. So in this case, we're going to do an emboss effect. It's also a text shadow. It's a pretty small text shadow. In this case, we're going to use an RGBA value, which is a red, green, and blue and alpha value. So this is 50% white. And we're using a very short offset to the left. And that creates just a very thin little shadow to the left of the piece. Now, for an emboss effect, what we're going to be doing is actually applying 2 shadows. And you can apply as many shadows as you want right on top of each other. So you can apply multiple shadows to a single element. So let's do that. We'll just add a comma and put in another shadow effect here. So this shadow will be offset slightly to the right, still very weak, just 3 pixels in strength, and then colored black at 60%. So we can apply as many shadows as we want, and that sometimes allows us to create more complex effects with shadows. Okay, the text outline is one that requires a different specification here. So we'll do a WebKit text stroke. And this takes just a single amount for the thickness of the shadow. So you can just change that to whatever thickness you want. And also a color for the color of the shadow. So here you have white that's at 80%. So you can create a lot of different effects by combining some of these. Shadows are pretty easy to do, and with a lot of these WebKit elements, you can add multiple shadows, multiple backgrounds on top of other backgrounds and other effects to just come up with a lot of different combinations. Text is a special case because it requires its own specifications separate from the box element specs that you normally work with.